just replacing those negative thoughts and just not dwelling on those voices or thoughts that tell you you're not good enough, or it's okay if you just go do this behavior, no big deal, when you know it's not right. So just being very aware and conscious of that, and it's just having a routine every day of being in prayer, being in the Word, listening to positive podcasts and uplifting people, and just kind of being surrounding yourself with the right folks is definitely a big part of it. And again, just kind of start with that surrendered life, and then, okay, what are the steps to walk this out every single day? Because it's got to be actionable for sure.
Welcome to the Elev8 podcast. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. And whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you're in the right place. My guest this episode is a former professional baseball player playing in the major leagues for the Astros, Padres, and the Giants. He's also the author of the book From the Bullpen to the State Pen. Welcome to the Elev8 podcast, Brandon Puffer. How are we doing today?
Doing great, man. Happy to be here.
Excited to have you. You got a big old smile. I love it. It makes me smile. Makes my Monday mirror neurons are firing. I'm so excited to have you. But your book that's linked up here, catchy title, From the Bullpen to the State Pen. I guess let's start there, and if without too many spoilers, just kind of the cliff notes about what your book's about and why you wanted to share the story.
Yeah, for sure, Tyler. Absolutely. So basically, and like I said, in a kind of a Cliff Note version, it's just a story of, young man had a dream of being a big league ball player, like a lot of kids. And then kind of the work ethic and the consistency, perseverance, luck, the blessings from God, all those things that had to come in to achieve that, which I was fortunate enough to achieve that dream. And then, after that, just kind of the parallel to that is addiction and some demons I was fighting off the field, and kind of caught up with me, and then my career ended with me getting in some trouble off the field and having to go through some consequences. So it's a book of choices and consequences for sure. And then ultimately redemption as well. Like, where do we go from here after we've made that big mistake? Now what, So just kind of everything I learned through the journey of all those kind of ups and downs.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on to share a little bit about it. And I guess in the redemption part, where did you find the path to redemption? And I think, what were, maybe some faith things you believe, but also I think behaviors that we look at that I think have to kind of parallel some of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Tyler. It's impossible to share my story without the faith aspect for sure. But to your point, I mean, absolutely, that's where it started, is just kind of a surrendered life to, for me, I'm a Christian. So it was like, hey, my choices got me here. And by here, I mean, I think we'll get there, but in prison. And now where do I go from here, God? I surrender everything. And so that was the first part. But then, yeah, you totally have to restructure your thoughts and be so aware of them. The cognitive intervention part was huge and still is huge for me, in terms of just replacing those negative thoughts and just not dwelling on those voices or thoughts that tell you you're not good enough, or it's okay if you just go do this behavior, no big deal, when you know it's not right. So just being very aware and conscious of that, and it's just having a routine every day of being in prayer, being in the Word, listening to positive podcasts and uplifting people, and just kind of being surrounding yourself with the right folks is definitely a big part of it. And again, just kind of start with that surrendered life, and then, okay, what are the steps to walk this out every single day? Because it's got to be actionable for sure.
Yeah, I love how you brought up routine, because a lot of as athletes and when you're on the mound, can you talk about the importance of routines, just like you talked about, I mean, in your life today, but having them when you're on the mound, and having maybe routines with your family or with yourself. But I'm sure they evolve, but talk a little bit about just importance of developing those different routines.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, it just started with being an athlete and being a baseball player, and kind of, if you're prepared, preparation kind of leads itself to confidence. And so, yeah, finding a routine that works for you in terms of, your workouts leading up to competition, the meals that are best for you, your sleep patterns, all these different things that helped me as an athlete, really helped me through my hard times. I had to find a routine to make it survive every day for a while. And then now having a routine that is best, making me the best version of me, to be the best father and to be the best husband. And so for me, that's waking up. I mean, the morning routine is so important, right? How we start our day. Before we get on the phone and start, getting after it, it's like, okay, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of prayer, a little bit of just self-reflection. What do I want to accomplish today? Like, God gave me one more day. What are we going to do today? And so I think walking that out, and throughout the day, again, back to, for me, mental health is a big thing. So being very strict about making sure I get a workout in is really helpful for me. And along with that, nutrition, sleep, again, and all those things that kind of take care of my mind and my body, give me a better chance to make good decisions and be the best version of myself to be around. And it's not perfect, man. And a lot of times I'll be, thinking knucklehead thoughts again, or responding in a way that I don't like to respond to people. And usually I can kind of look back and go, oh man, I've been off my routine for a couple of days. I need to get back on it.
Yeah. Can you, in my own life journey, I think when I struggled with mental health and just kind of anxiety and depression in my late 20s, what was shown to me through other people was I got away from a lot of the athletic habits, the people I surrounded myself, some of the nutrition, the wellness, the working out. And looking back, I think it was also because football was over, and I thought with that was some of my identity. And I think so. Can you talk a little bit how important having an identity, I think, outside of sports is as well, and how that leads to our behaviors?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know why it looks like I'm seizing, because I'm not. I
It's
feel
good.
really good, man. I don't understand what's going on there. There we
There you
go.
go. There you
That
go.
happened one other time. That's really weird. I don't know what the connection is there, but no, man, definitely. Yeah, it doesn't take me long at all to just start feeling really crummy, for lack of a better term, when I get off of, a lot of those routines. And I think as athletes, we had to do it for so long that it was a little bit refreshing to just go, oh man, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to be in peak performance every single day. But then you realize, that some of those same attributes, to your point, the nutrition, the health, the sleep, for me, with, again, same thing, anxiety, depression, very active mind, getting that workout in is just so imperative for me now, more than not. I'm not really going to jump on a stage or be on the mound or anything, but it's like, there's some vanity. It feels good to look good, but it's like, man, I just feel better when I go get those
Yeah.
serotonins
Yeah.
pumping, and get all the endorphins kicking. And so yeah, I agree. And I think why people get away from it, and you can probably attest, is like, you've had to do it for so long that it's like, man, it's kind of nice to not have to do that. But
Hmm.
now it's about, for you, and not just for performance, for anybody else, just for you. Like, how do you feel best? And I know for
Yeah.
me, I'll get off it for a little while, like the holidays. I'm like, you know what? For a month, I'm just gonna act up and not work out and eat crazy. And especially the older I get, I just feel miserable physically, but mentally as well. And you're just not confident, and it affects every aspect of your life.
Sure. Sure. Um, with that, I think, student athletes, one of the things coaches are always talking about is accountability. And I think even as we grow, and like we talked about our journeys and our process, like being self-accountable is something you're always, I think, working at,
Yeah.
if you're striving towards things. But how important is it to have that self-accountability and check in, and then maybe also uh, the circle of people around you that are going to give you quality feedback?
Yeah, I think it's very important. And I think the second part is so important, because what I've realized is I'm okay. I'm a pretty hard worker. Like, I'll get on a routine, I'll go work out, I'll push myself, I'll do these things. But I can also really trick myself, man. I can really, or not really trick myself, but trick others. I know I can look in the mirror and go, man, you're not really, you're faking the funk. You're not really doing it. But you can put on that good front for others. So to have those folks that'll not tell you really necessarily what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, and just kind of hold you accountable and go, hey man, how are things? Like, how are you really? How's your walk been? And how you feeling? And not on a surface level, but just a couple people that can really hold you accountable are huge. Because I know in my experience, I can look like I've got it all together and I'm going great and I'm a leader and all these things, but inside I'm struggling. And the biggest thing for me when I had kind of a downfall in my life was I didn't want to admit that. I didn't want folks to know that I wasn't perfect because in a leadership position, some folks may look up to you and you're like, man, I won't let them down. I'm supposed to be the one that has it going on, and I just don't. And so being vulnerable to admit that and being transparent with some folks you trust is extremely important. So definitely being accountable to yourself, but at the end of the day, we can be accountable to ourselves and then realize, man, I probably need a little bit more accountability outside of just me.
Yeah. Vulnerability is a topic we like on this podcast as well, because I think whether it's leadership, our personal development, it's always a factor. And I think you coming on here, sharing your story, right, talking about challenging times, it can be vulnerable. But can you talk about why it's okay for athletes to talk to someone, whether it's maybe a friend, a professional, a coach, a parent, someone that they trust about things they're feeling or vulnerabilities that are in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main reason it's okay and it's also so beneficial is because what you realize is a lot of these things we're thinking about, we're kind of struggling with, they're not really as I don't want to say important as they seem to be in our mind. But once you let them out and you speak about them, you realize a couple things. You realize one, you're not alone. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's got some form of these issues and they're usually just going to come right alongside you and go, oh, me too. Like that's why I love when people have with a little bit of influence or vulnerable about different things. I'm like, oh man, now I can speak up too. And then not only that, but it tends to lose its power a little bit. Like when it's inside you, it just develops and it just continues to kind of grow. Like man, this monster that we're like, and then you let it out and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not as big as I thought it was, and we can attack this with some strength in numbers and some support. And so it kind of loses. I always say that when you get it out there, it kind of loses its power. And then on top of that, like I said, to kind of reiterate, most of the time you realize because when it's inside you, it's like, man, no one thinks like me. I'm crazy. And they're like, yeah, we absolutely think like that. You're normal. You're not alone. So it's really good to do that. And that's the main reason for my book is like, man, I just want to be transparent and go, look, here it all is, man. And if it helps one person, encourages one person to not go down that path, or B, go, hey, I've been down that path. And okay, so there's life after this. We can recover from this. It's just that vulnerability, that transparency that helps others grow and helps yourself grow and helps you realize, all right, okay, I can do this. Like not everybody's just going to judge me. And there's some folks that want to come around alongside me and encourage me. And it's pretty awesome when people do that.
Most definitely. I like how you talked about, you mentioned it losing its power, because I think one of the things we also do as athletes and as people is, we blame, we complain, we defend behaviors and certain things. And I always kind of tell athletes, when we do that, we undermine our ability to change. But I think what you said really kind of connects that too, because that undermining is being vulnerable versus pointing the finger. And that really loses its power and allows that space to grow. And I think that I just made some connections for me as you said it.
Awesome. Yeah.
So loved hearing it. But seeing your big smile, and I can tell you're an optimistic guy. What is it you believe is possible for people? What do you want people to see in other people?
Oh man, that's a good question, Ty. Well, I feel like one of my purposes is just to be an encourager. So whether that's like through a smile or through a text or an encouraging word or whatnot, I really do feel like you can pull people out of their doubt mindset of they're not good enough or they can't just by encouraging them. I mean, really, and then by your life experience, right? Like, hey, some things happened to me, right? Like some, being again vulnerable, transparent. Like I believe if you're able to encourage people by saying, hey, I've been through some tough stuff. Like I know you don't want to talk about being sexually abused, or I know you don't want to talk about having addiction and having parents that, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you take control of your thoughts and you take control of your actions and you have some consistency and you're persistent in some ways and you identify and define what it is you want to do and then take those little steps day by day to do them, you're capable of so much more than you could ever imagine. And it's like just encouraging them, whether it's using your own personal story or just reading about others that have had success, and like every single time, the common factor is we didn't see all the failures. I mean, it's never like just, oh yeah, you created that, invented that, or started that company, sold that, and it was just like it was all gravy. It was like, no, man, we struggled so many times, had all these issues. And so that always encourages me when I read about leaders and I read about success stories and then go, man, they really had to persevere and be consistent here. So that's the key, is kind of just not giving up before it's your time. You're gonna struggle, take some steps back. But the hard part is I think a lot of folks quit before their breakthrough. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, man, just hang on. I mean, it's like a war of attrition. If you just hang on long enough and just ride those storms, the good times are coming, right? So that's my message to folks, is just like, hey, look, and whether it's pulled from parts of my personal story or just others that have encouraged me, it's like, no, you're not the first one to feel like you can't do this, but you can't think like that. And you've got to continue to just pour in those positive affirmations to yourself. And one, it literally, like, sounds cliche, but like one step, one day at a time. And then some time goes by and you look back, you're like, man, that was some accomplishments there. And so not to get so focused on the end goal, but the process, day to day.
Yeah, I love how you talk about the one step and the one day at a time. Breaking it down to manageable amounts, right? I think is helpful for athletes and just for in life. I always you talked about your beliefs and your faith earlier, and I think that's always kind of the start where I talk to athletes a lot about where are your core values, and then where are your goals, and there's things and elements in between, but how have you found when you live in better alignment with your beliefs and your faith, has that translated to accomplishments that you're proud of versus times when you perhaps have lived out of alignment of maybe some of your goals or your beliefs and faith?
Yeah. Wow. Another great question, Tyler. You're bringing them, man. Man, it's they're so related. They're so correlated. It's when I am living in my core beliefs. And again, my core beliefs come from, my faith in Christianity, and everyone's different in that, but finding what that is for you. And so for me, knowing and believing that, and then living in a way that doesn't line up with that, it's just a lack of freedom. It's just, or to put it on the other side of things, when I am walking that out, and I never do it perfectly, but when I feel like I'm in alignment and I'm doing the things that I believe line up with my faith and with what's right, there's just a freedom in that, man. There's just this freedom, and you feel like you're being authentic, and it feels really, really good. And then on the flip side of that, and I wish I was behind all this, I'm not. I hope I will be one day, but it's like, and even if it's just thoughts that don't line up with your or agree with what you believe to be true or how you should be walking things out, you feel kind of like a phony, and you feel like an imposter, and you feel like, oh, that's not a good feeling. And it's like you're always hiding from something, or not being able to be yourself. And when you can be yourself freely, whatever your belief is, and you're like, man, this is what I believe, and I'm walking it out, and I'm being helpful to people, and not only that, but I'm the best version of me when I'm walking this out. Man, what freedom there is in that. And again, on the flip side, it's a little bit more than a little bit restrictive, because you just don't feel like you're being authentic, and then it's hard to go out and be your very real self.
I love that. Well said. Looking back at baseball, what was one of the most proud moments you had on the mound back?
Man, I think it was my first major league win. I really do. It was just, your major league debut, you'll never forget. And it was awesome. And I had a kind of a cool side story to it about the manager coming out and giving me one of those like TV mound visits where I thought I was out of the game, but he like just asked me about some crazy stuff. So it's a cool memory, probably one of my more fun memories without a doubt. But my first major league win kind of came just on kind of a random night where our starter didn't do so hot, and I got in the game early against the Rangers, and it was when they had A-Rod and Palmero and Juan Gonzalez and Michael. Just they were just stacked, man. It was just one of those lineups where you're like, be happy to get through that thing once, dude. But it was early in the game, and so I had to go 4 or 5 innings and just kind of keep our team in it. And the team, we were behind, the team chipped away and got back in, and it was just just really cool. It's like just thinking about just getting in the game, trying to do my job for the team, and then letting them hang on and facing some of those good dudes multiple times and working my way through that lineup. It's just a cool memory for me. And I mean, it probably just speaks to I didn't have a very long career. I mean, a lot of guys did that several times, but it was like, man, this is where I really felt like I'm contributing. I'm a part of this team, right? So that was probably my coolest, I guess major league moment. There's so many cool moments along the way, and it could be on a Tuesday night in some small town in the minor leagues. That was just awesome picking up a team win or whatever. But that one kind of stands out for me. And they give you got the ball in my office, and then another ball that they gave me, I gave to my parents, and so it just made for a great memory.
How many years did you spend in the minors in your journey?
Yeah, so I played a total of 15 years, and
Okay.
most of that was in the minors. I got probably parts of 4 years in the big leagues, and only one of those was like a full year. The rest were kind of up and down. So pretty much most of my 15-year career was minor league. So lots of cool minor league memories and bus rides and teammates and small towns and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I'd say the bulk of 15 years, and then like I said, parts of 4 years, and I got to get those little cups of coffee in the big leagues.
Yeah. So talk, I think it's interesting because I always admire people that they always think I think professional AAA can you, but I've been in a single A, a double A, a triple A, in a professional clubhouse. When they call it the show, they call it the show for a reason.
Yeah.
Can you talk about just some of the realities and sacrifices of being, playing at the minor league level? And I think the love of the game you have to continue to play, um, to strive to get to your goal if the MLB is your goal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people refer to the minor leagues as the grind, right? And rightfully so. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But man, I just have the fondest memories. I really do. And I mean, when you're in the trenches and night game, travel day, whatever, just long, long bus ride, and hotels aren't the best. And sometimes the clubhouses, the amenities aren't great. And you think back on it, you're like, yeah, it got a little grindy every now and then. But I just honestly, Tyler, man, I don't ever remember being like, oh, this sucks. And when guys did have that attitude or complain, I was just like, my perspective was always like, this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I assume most of you. And you know how many people would just love to be in our situation right now? I mean,
Yeah.
really, like there's just so many folks that would just die to be here. And so I was kind of that guy. Like I was pretty optimistic and kept a positive attitude. And when guys would be complaining, I'd be like, I bet if you went in there and asked for your release, they'd let you go home. And they're like, well, no, that's
Oh,
not what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah.
And so it's like, you know what, man, I'm not going to just spend too much time dwelling on what's not perfect or right about it. And it's well known that, your, money or your whatever achievements come once you get that call, and you're not guaranteed to get it. But any mindset that you're taking during the day when you're in the minor leagues of focusing on a negative of where you are, where you wish you were, it's just taken away from your opportunity to achieve that goal. And so, fortunately, I did have kind of a positive mindset that was instilled in me that kind of helped me through all that. And so, yeah, man, I just have nothing but fond memories. I mean, I get it. Like, it's not great or
Yeah.
glamorous, and you're certainly not making any money. And to your point about making sacrifices, you're away from your family a lot, and there's not a whole lot to show for it, so that's tough for sure. And then I would go play winter ball to kind of make a little extra money, and right around the time your family's happy to have you home and the holidays, you're like, I gotta head over to Venezuela now, and your kids are like, so there's definitely a ton of sacrifice. And I've always said it, it really sets you up for a selfish mindset. You almost have to be to like reach that pinnacle, very selfish, very about yourself and your routine. Again, we back to routine, but like it all boils down to just it's all about you, and that's a tough place to be. And then be a great father and a great husband, a great friend in your community. It's just I always felt like I had to be so hyper focused on my stuff that it takes away a little bit. I think that's the hardest part. That's the
Yeah.
biggest sacrifice is just not giving more of yourself.
I will say I've always my people that I know that played minor league baseball, they should write a cookbook on grilled cheeses, peanut butter and jellies, and how to make anything on a George Foreman or waffle thing. Like that's
Dude,
a
yes.
minor. There needs to be a minor league cookbook on this weird genre of food. But
Yeah.
I know one of my experiences was I was in the Charlotte Knights clubhouse, and
Yeah.
this guy walked next to me and kind of bumped into me, and I looked over, and he's trying to use the George Foreman to make a grilled cheese or something, and like kind of like asked my colleague that was with us, like, who is that? I'm like, he looks familiar. He's like, that's Hideo Nomo. And I was like, didn't
Awesome.
he's still pitching? Like, I didn't know he was still pitching in the system, and he,
Yeah.
but he loved baseball, so he's gonna do what everybody else was doing, and he was just as had no hitters and these other accolades,
Yeah.
but was just one of the dudes that I literally blended in. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, it's wild, man. There's so many guys like that that hang on, rather pitching and places independent ball or wherever, where you'd be like, man, why are they still doing it? But they do it because it's what they know, and they love it. They love the camaraderie, and that's the one thing always everyone says, right? Is like, yeah, I miss competing, and I miss being in the clubhouse, and I miss bus rides and hanging with your buddies and all that. And I think that's why a lot of guys like Hideo or like anyone else who goes, they start over, they make plenty of money, and they go coach in the an A ball, and you're like,
yeah,
what? You're on a bus ride? Dude, you've been in the big leagues for like 20 years, and they just love it, man. They just love everything about it, and I could see that before everything went down with me. I was on that path to like, man, I just want to be a lifer, be a big league bullpen coach. This is what I want to be around this my whole life, and so I totally get it. And then God kind of sends you in a different direction, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that calling coming, but this is really cool. But I fully understand why guys do it, why they hang on and just continue to do it.
no doubt. It's a lot of travel, that's for sure.
No doubt.
Was there a coach in your journey, whether playing or after your career, coach, mentor that sticks out, that had a great influence on you, that you're grateful for?
Oh man, I've had so many good ones, man. One of my biggest mentors in the game is a guy named Gene Watson, and he didn't ever coach me. He's actually a front office guy, and we got to know each other through the town I live in now. But just talk about a baseball guy. He's assistant GM for the Royals now, and he just always has the right answers, or he's just that guy like, hey, I need to know this. Boom, I'm on it. I know a guy, whatever it is. He's just like always willing to help anybody in the game. I mean, anybody, period. But he's just such a pure, like, true baseball guy. Like, if I'm ever trying to help someone else or myself, it's like, Gino, what do you got on this? Oh, here you go, pup. Here's the number. Here's who you need to get in contact with. And he just continues to be such a great mentor. Another guy that stands out for me that no one would ever know his name. His name's Andre Rabone, and he was my A ball pitching coach. He never pitched the big leagues, pitched in Mexico a little bit. Just dude, you talk about that guy was all about the crock pot. And so he never spent a dime on the road. Everything was in his crock pot in a minor league hotel. Like, oh, come over, I'm cooking this. But he dropped my arm angle, which gave me an opportunity to pitch longer. And I would have never made it without that adjustment. And he had kind of the courage to go, hey, let's try this. I want to do anything to help you, advance. And so he was always just giving me great advice and helping me along the way with tinkering. And, hey, because I think the problem is not a problem, maybe a problem, is when you're pretty good and you make it, you think, I don't need to change much. Or you shouldn't think that, but I know I ran into that. Like, this has always worked for me. And it's like, no, there's got to be some adjustments, and you've got to evolve here, and you've got to. And had I not done that, and Andre hadn't been really, really good about pushing me and staying on me about, hey, if you want to make it, yeah, if you're just content being here, we were in A ball at the time for like my 5th year. He's like, but if we do this, maybe. And so just not only changed my career with the arm angle change, but just was a real encouragement. We still keep in contact and stuff like that. So it's always nice. And there's several other guys that, would be there on the drop of a dime. It's a brotherhood, and they would just, if you needed anything or vice versa, it's like, I love the way that I always say baseball's a small community and sports in general, but we just always have each other's back. So there's so many that I could mention, but those two really stand out to me.
I like the being coachable.
Yeah.
And sometimes another guest previously brought up, there's difference between teachable and being coachable, and what you're open to.
Yeah.
And I was just had me thinking, one of my college teammates, his younger brother pitched for a little while. And I remember him asking him about, what's been the biggest help, between the major leagues and going back and forth. And he was like, listening to my pitching coaches. And I was like, well, what about that? And he said, well, it took me, because of my ego and things and hubris early on, was that I feel things because I throw the ball. They see things because they see me throw the ball. And he's like, it was the melding between the see and the feel that kind of
Yeah.
opened up some of his coachability, that he's like, yeah, I can't see myself in the moment throw the ball, but I do feel myself. And so I think that balance of, how to see, listen, feel kind of blends into
Yeah.
being coachable and also just being a great person. Um,
Yeah.
any kind of tips that you would give pitchers or athletes on being open to trying new things, even though it's always worked for me. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would, and it's kind of a twofold answer because I agree, and I think that's awesome. And I know, like, especially when I was still pitching, I still give pitching lessons and love to teach and coach and encourage youngsters. But like a lot of times, you'll be doing that, and you'll go, "Oh, that's what I'm not doing." Now that I'm seeing it on someone else, and kind of talking through that with you, that applies to me too. So as you're kind of, the more you talk about it, like, for me, I was a pitcher, so I was in the bullpen, like, be talking about it all the time, talking about pitching, asking questions, looking at different grips. If you see a guy that's having a lot of success, hey man, how do you hold your changeup? Or hey, I noticed you do this. What's that about? And just always being like inquisitive, open minded. And then at the same time, find out what works for you. Because, like, for instance, in my example, I was in, I think, like 12 organizations. That's a lot of different pitching coaches, a lot of different strength and conditioning coaches, a lot of different theories and routines and whatnot. And so you've got to eventually come up with your best coach as well. And that only comes from being open minded and learning from others for sure, but then internalizing it and go, this, when I'm going well, this would seem to work for me. And then it doesn't mean it's perfect, but now it is okay. Let's perfect that routine and really master everything we're doing here. And if you're having success, great. You still got to be able to learn. And especially if you're not, I think that's when you certainly need to go, wait a minute, is this really working for you, or did it just used to work for you? So I think being open-minded, having conversations, not being afraid to act like, I don't need help. I look where I made it. It's like, no, man, we all need, to continue to improve every single day. So that's what I would encourage folks to be open-minded about it. And then again, internalize it and take bits and pieces from the best and find out what really works for you.